Hey, in this video I want to show you a cool trick that I think every React developer should know or should at least have heard of. The trick I'm talking about is knowing how to forward refs in React components. And the reason it's so important to know is because A, it will make you a better developer with a better understanding of how React works, and on the other hand it will prove very useful when you're trying to build reusable components. Okay, we want to pass a ref to a child component for many reasons. Let's take a look at what the most intuitive approach would be, right? We have a React component and then we want to pass that to another component right here. That is called the child component. And the easiest way to do that would just be to initialize a ref here. So we could say use ref up here in the parent component. Let's make that a bit of a different color. And then we take that useRef we initialize in the parent and pass it as a prop down here to the child component. And then we can use it for a div, for a button, for whatever we want in the child component. That would be the most intuitive approach. And let's take a look at how we would implement that in practice. So this is a React project I made with Vite, so it's a bit faster. And let's try out what we just said. So to initialize a ref, we can call the useRef hook that is built into React, and we can assign that useRef to anything we want. Let's just call it ref and initialize that as null. So what the ref does, you might know this, it creates a connection between a DOM node, so for example a div, and an object that we have in React that we can programmatically access to manipulate that DOM node, to set focus to it. That's a use case that a ref is often used for. Now, to use the ref in the div, we would say ref is equal to, and then whatever we called this ref. So it would look like that. However, we want to pass this to a child component so we can use it there, right? So let's create that component. Let's call it child.tsx. Now this is going to be in TypeScript. However, don't worry if you've never used TypeScript or barely know, that is totally fine. I'm going to make sure you can follow along in JavaScript just fine. Now, if you're in JavaScript, we can just get rid of this and this works just fine. However, the benefit of TypeScript is that it will make the props a bit more type safe. So the code will be easier to maintain and to read, at least in my opinion. Okay, so we've created the child component and we've created the parent component and we've also created the ref that we want. The next step would be to render the child component inside of the parent, and we do that by importing it and rendering it right here. And now the child component should take the ref as a prop, right? Because we said we want to pass the useRef we initialize in the parent down to the child component. Let's do that. We've already created the ref, and that ref should now be accepted by the child. Now, if you're in TypeScript, this demands a type, and we can get that by hovering over and just copy and pasting this. If you're in JavaScript, don't worry about the interface at all. You can just define the ref here and pass it from the parent. No questions asked. Okay, we've now passed the ref, and now you can see that's the benefit of TypeScript. The child demands the ref property that we've demanded from the child, and we can pass the ref in here as a prop down to the child. Now let's try logging out the ref here. So let's say console.log ref.current inside of the child component. I'm going to save that, and let's see what happens in the browser. So let's go. I don't think it's localhost 3000 actually. Let me see what it is in Vite. There we go. This is the address. Let's copy and paste that into the browser and let's see what happens. The screen is white. That's a first indicator that something is not right. And if we take a look at the console, oh wow, there's a lot of errors in this console. Warning, child ref is not a prop. Trying to access it will result in undefined being returned if you need to access the same value within the child component, blah, 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 and so on. There's just a bunch of errors. So apparently passing childs like we tried right here, or passing refs as props, that's what I meant, like this is not the best solution. And instead, what we can do to get access to this div DOM node inside of the child and then control it from the parent component that we have right here in the app, controlling it with this ref right here. It's not hard, but you have to know how to do it. And I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So we're going to go back into the child component and then import something called forward ref from React. And what this forward ref allows us to do, and I think I'm going to make this a bit easier for you to follow along in JavaScript if you're using that. First off, let us cut the whole component because we're going to wrap this component inside of the forward ref. So we're importing the forward ref up here, then calling that, and then here we are passing the component. And now specifically TypeScript would be mad at us. If you're in JavaScript, that's just fine. Now what this allows us to do is just get the ref as the second argument. And we will have to get rid of this so we don't have a duplicate identifier. And as you can see, the type is already inferred as react.forwardRef unknown. So when we forward the ref, we get access to that ref as this property right here that we can then use to log out whatever we want, console log ref, at least for now, and then we will add to that with TypeScript here in a second. And now we can actually pass the ref from the parent. So let's take a look at what happens when we reload this browser. The arrows are gone. That's a great sign. And then we see object current null. So apparently the ref has not initialized correctly because we've never assigned it to anything. So we could say the ref of this div should be the ref that we get as the props. Now TypeScript will make a bit of a problem out of that because this ref comes in as type unknown. If you're in JavaScript, this would be it. This would be how to forward the ref to get access to a child DOM node from the parent. That's the reason we're using the forward ref, because we can't pass the ref as a prop. If you're in TypeScript, this is a bit trickier. So as the first generic we want to add the forward ref, we can add the HTML div element, so whatever the ref is referring to, and then as the second argument we're going to pass child props. Now this child doesn't receive anything as props, so we can say interface child props is just an empty object. That would work just fine, or we could just leave it out altogether with this empty object. There's no real point in having this in there, but I just want to demonstrate to you how to do this well in TypeScript. Now, when we go back into the browser and take a look at this object right here, we can see the current value of the div we have passed has a bunch of properties, and those are the properties of the DOM node that we pass it to, so of this div right here in the child. Now to take a look at that in detail, we can remove this console log from the child component, go back into the parent component, and also type this out correctly. So this would be an HTML div element or null, because that's what we're initializing because that is what we are initializing it as. We're initializing it as null right here. And then we can say console, I don't know why it doesn't know what the console log is, console.log ref.current. So the current contains the DOM node that is currently selected by React with the ref, so the one we pass to the child component. And now when we reload the browser, we can see that null is being logged out to the console because that's the initialization, right? And if we wanted to get the actual value, we would need to check for an update of this DOM node. And we can do that by using, a use effect. So we are invoking this use effect whenever something changes. So whenever the ref changes, because it's initialized as null and then it changes to the actual DOM node once the client side has rendered, we can do this inside of a use effect to manage side effects. And for example, console.log ref.current whenever the ref changes. And now if we save that, reload the page, you can see the div, and if we hover over it, it selects the actual DOM node that the ref represents that we passed on to the child component. So the div you see right here in the browser console is the div we passed the ref to in the child component, this ref right here, that we're setting to this div that is then being logged out in the console that you just saw. And that is the magic there is to forwarding refs, especially when and how to do it. Hey, if you're at this point of the video, I really hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value from it and are now an expert on how to pass around refs and why and when you should do that. Chances are you're probably also interested in how to leverage React's powerful use context hook to your advantage to further improve your React code. If you want, the video is right here and I'll see you in there. Until then, have a good one and bye bye.